Can you talk about your ideas of human rights as not just sort of a bleeding heart, lefty often cause or some globalist construct, but as something that we can use to advance U.S. national security against China? Welcome, Senator or Ambassador.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for having me on the show. And good to see you again. And I remember fondly those days dealing with North Korean issues and getting people out and getting people into some freedom. I was back in Seoul last year and seeing North Koreans that had escaped and were getting educated now. And it was really warm in my heart to see that. I just am fundamentally of the belief that we should be looking at particularly religious freedom as a strategic issue, not as a human rights issue. This is one that it's a cornerstone human right for us. It's a cornerstone of Western civilization. It is an existential threat to the Chinese Communist Party, and they treat it as such and spend billions of dollars every year to put down every religion. Buddhism, Muslims, Christians, Falun Gong, they really hate those guys, just all of them. Well, okay, if they're spending billions to hold them down, we should be propping these guys up, working with them, use them as a theater engagement strategy that we are for religious freedom. They are opposed to religious freedom, and we want to stand with the people that are in opposition to the CCP. I want us to strategically think differently, particularly about religious freedom in our confrontation with communist China.
Great. Mark, did you have a question?
You know, I think of that, and I do think the one thing that we often give up with the CCP, and for some reason, I do feel the current Trump administration gives it up, is the moral high ground. In other words, we have a moral high ground above the CCP. And living in Hong Kong for many, many years and, still being out here in Asia, it's obvious to anyone, whether you're in the Philippines or even in Japan or South Korea, the fact of the matter is the strongest people against the Communist Party are the Christians or the Muslims in Indonesia or people like that. But my question to you is this, and it's not an accusatory question, is what is it with our foreign policy establishment where they just get a little quirky every single time religious freedom comes up? In other words, they mouth it, but then you don't see the passion behind it, and unless you're out there.
Yeah, I sure saw that on the inside of State Department. It's like they get the hives when religion comes up. It's kind of Christian. Oh, wait a minute. It's like this notion of separation of church and state is so deeply ingrained that you can't even talk about it. And I was saying, well, wait a minute. Look at Ronald Reagan prior to confronting the Soviet Union and being president. And during his presidency, he was talking about the Jewish refuseniks. It was this group of people that the Russians, the Soviets wouldn't allow to immigrate into Israel. And he used that really to undermine the moral authority of the Soviet Union. Why won't you let these poor people go? Why don't you let them go to Israel? And it worked. It really delegitimized the regime. And we could do the same thing here. You just can't be afraid to say the word Christian or Falun Gong. And if you don't want to say that, say Buddhist or Muslim. But most of the world carries a faith with them. 80% of the world claims a faith that orients their life in some way or another. That is a huge asset for us against a communist regime that denies faith, denies God exists, and treats every human as an economic cog, and that's it. You're not a spirit, you're not a soul, you are an economic cog, and that's what you're going to be treated as. Well, it is deadening. It didn't work in the Soviets. It will not work in China ultimately, and we need to use it towards their demise.